All right, everybody, welcome to the Meadows and Makers podcast. I'm your host, Greg Dowd, also known as Making Stuff here in the Hive community. I have today a guest for you guys. His name is Dagorist. You can find him on Twitter. He also has a project, Agorist Acres, where he's selling seeds to folks that are looking for some seeds for your gardening efforts. So yeah, welcome to this podcast, Dag. And how are you doing today?
Hey man, I'm doing pretty darn good, dude. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, well, yeah, I put that word out on Twitter for anyone that in the community, the agorist community, that is offering a product, and that's something I'm trying to do is shill for some agorists, man.
Hell yeah.
Happy to have you on the show, and so yeah, I like to usually start off the show with asking if you could. I know you're a homesteader and you've been
Mhm.
doing that for a while. Uh,
Mhm.
we talked a little bit pre-show, and you said that you also have a couple podcasts yourself with the Agorist Nexus.
Mhm.
If you'd like to go ahead and uh, maybe let everybody know a little bit about yourself and maybe how you got on the path that you're on right now.
Sure, man. So so first off, I want to say that like what you're doing with getting Agorist businesses out there and everything, I think is key. Um, we need to be supporting each other whenever possible. Like I live out in the sticks. I use Amazon when I have to, right? Sometimes it's just the way to go. But damn it, I try my best, to small businesses, other Liberty people, whatever I can do. So that's really great. Um, so basically, I don't know, man. I guess the to go way back. I mean, I come from a family of I don't know, man, kind of hippies. Some of my I'm not going to say specific, maybe some smugglers in the past and whatnot. So a little bit of a Agorist background, but my parents and family still kind of like democratic, And I was really reminiscing the other day, thinking like, man, I really came so close to being a young Turks kind of Democrat progressive if I hadn't found libertarianism and homesteading and farming. It really taught me things like personal responsibility and whatnot that really brought me into this world. But I guess about 10 years ago, I was really starting to okay, so like in 2012, like I voted for Gary Johnson, right? Like I started to sort of
Oh yeah.
come over to this, but I wasn't quite ready to let it go,
Mm-hmm.
And I started learning a lot about homesteading. I started learning a lot about like the food system and how broken it was, and the laws preventing people from living the way they want, from eating the way they want, from eating what I would argue is the proper way. Uh, I started watching stuff like Joel Salatin. I saw the documentary Food Inc., which I'm
Oh
sure a
man,
lot of people have seen.
I love Joel Salatin.
Dude, I saw him laying there in the field with his pigs talking on this thing, and I'm like, who is this man? And I started ordering his books and reading his books, and everything I want to do is illegal. Old classic. It just like, man, this is fucked up. That there's these better systems, and the government just is making it so much worse. And I've always sort of been a bit of an environmentalist, so I was like, dude, I want to get back out to the woods. I grew up in the woods. I grew up in the country. I've been living in the city for a decade or two. And I was just like, I got to get back out to the country. I got to get away from the city bullshit. I got to start owning something for myself. Started a small garden at the suburban house I had at the time. And this is back, let's say 2014 ish. And some things just fell in line and had the opportunity to get a piece of property. I had some family members who were willing to help me out. And I found a really cheap piece of property with 6 acres. It's here in Central Florida. It's on what's called the Mid Florida Ridge, and it's like this high elevation. It's really sandy. It's citrus, like it's all citrus here, just miles and miles and miles. It's citrus and cows. And this used to be an old orange grove for 100 years. It was beaten up real bad. When I got here, it looked like the beach. It was just white sand. And so I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this organic vegetable farm and it's going to be great. And, I'm reading all these books and I got all these ideas. And oh man, I don't want to say delusional, but like looking back, I'm like, man, that was a really big undertaking to want to attempt, just doing the veggies. And the first couple of years I was out here, I had a decent size vegetable garden, I guess you'd say, maybe 2,500 to 3,000 square feet, so pretty good. I had a couple like CSA style customers that I delivered vegetables to weekly. I think it was like 5 or 6 families, so it was about $125, $150 a week. uh, doing this, working on building the land, and it was fun, and I learned a lot, lots of mistakes. Um, but it's it's a lot of work doing vegetables, and we really wanted chickens just to have and to sort of help prepare the land. Have them do labor for us, have them till, have them eat grass, have them eat bugs, have them fertilize. All the great stuff that pasture raised poultry can do for you. And we really fell in love with the animals, and we're like, wow, this is so much easier than vegetables. You just sort of put them out there and let them go. And we needed a way to build the soil to do vegetables, so we really got into doing pasture raised chickens. And at first we're doing heritage breeds. I'm not touching those broilers, that's some weird hybrid thing. I'm staying pure. So we start with the heritage breeds, and we're getting eggs, and we're processing these chickens that are 3 pounds if we're lucky, tough as shit, and finally learn how to cook them. But we're trying to sell them, and people don't want to buy them because they come with all these special cooking instructions, and they're not going to be like what you get in the store. And not it just wasn't really working out like that. And I read Joel Salatin's Pasture Poultry Profits, and he's doing the broilers. And I'm like, man, if it's good enough for Joel, it's good enough for me. And the case he makes in there, which I think is accurate, is, look, I'd love to do heritage breeds all day long, but the market isn't there, the profitability isn't there. It's just not possible to do it and continue to do it. We can want to water our gardens only with virgin rainwater and this and that all we want, but ultimately when you start doing a little bit of a homestead, and by all means, if you're out there and you can do it without making any of these concessions, do it. But I think a lot of times you kind of run into some roadblocks where you're trying to do this real pure farming style, and you're using only recycled materials and this and that. And I think it's really great, but it can really be hard to scale. And, so like, okay, I don't ever want to use pesticides, but when I do, I use organic pesticides, but I'd rather not ever use them. But sometimes if I want to sell tomatoes, like I just have to, certain times of the year. So at any rate, you just sort of got to make some concessions. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to try these broilers. And we started doing the pasture raised broilers a la Joel Salatin style with the mobile chicken tractors. I'm sure you're familiar. I would assume most of the audience is. But basically, it's a pen. I've got one that's 10 by 12 feet, about 2 feet high. And you just move it every day, maybe twice a day. And basically what it's doing is it's getting fresh greens and bugs for your chickens every day. It's controlling where their waste goes. Since you're moving it every day, they're not living in their own filth like you do with an industrial chicken house. The product, the chicken, is amazing. Great flavor. You can cook it like a supermarket bird. It doesn't have these special instructions like the heritage breed did. It becomes profitable because they get up to size. It's just a really great way to go. And it's amazing. Like, we move this chicken tractor along, and 2 weeks behind it, you can see everywhere it was, like the exact path it took, because it's dark green. Like that grass is healthy, it's thriving. Coming behind this, it's just a beautiful system that I don't know. I mean, Joel's probably not the only person that did, but he had a big hand in sort of developing this. But getting this like relationship with livestock and your land and using it to improve the land is just this beautiful thing. And I get to provide chicken and food and all that to my customers, and it makes me feel so good. I get good feedback. I just feel so good about what I do. We're trying to make it where it can be a full-time thing, and I cannot have to do off the farm work. That's the big goal for me and my wife, is to get to where we don't have to do off the farm work. So she's got a bunch of really cool hustles that I'd love to talk about at some point that she's working on, and I'm doing my things, and we both have our off the farm jobs, and we've both been able to go to part-time, fortunately. So we're working down, man. And yeah, so that's basically up to where we are at the farm now. As far as the seeds go, I've had the domain Agorist Acres for years, and I was really trying to find something to do. And I thought about some content creation stuff, but I mean, let's be honest, the homesteading content creation market is pretty saturated, probably even more so in the libertarian, content creating market. So there's a lot of it out there, and I'd sort of come up with some ideas. And one of the things that I was tinkering with was, okay, well, I've got this land, what can I do with it? And I'm like, well, what if I plant like bee habitat, and maybe people can sponsor bee habitat, so every $1 a year or a month, you get a square foot or, whatever of wildflower space or something. I looked into getting a bunch of beehives and actually doing like a hive share where, hey, you buy a quarter of a hive and every year I send you the honey from that hive, and then that could support some of my things. And I don't know, I was just toying with a few things. And in 2020 it sort of hit me like you couldn't get seeds anywhere for gardens, and I needed to buy seeds for our projects around here, and you couldn't get seeds anywhere. And I'm like, all right, I need to hustle. I was kind of inspired by Sal the Agorist with his 3D printer Go Burr, because I'm
Yeah.
like, he's not really doing anything special except offering an outlet to use your crypto. You know what I mean? Like, you can buy
Yeah.
3D printers anywhere, but this is somewhere you can buy them with crypto. And yeah, there is the KYC thing where Amazon knows I bought a 3D printer once, and you cannot have that happen through him. So that's another plus. But to me, really, the thing is, I'm like, he's just selling 3D printers, but accepting crypto. So I'm like, well, let me check the other Liberty businesses because we all want to support each other. So let me not double up, and I couldn't find anybody that sold seeds. So I'm like, all right, well, let me sell seeds for crypto and do a website. It's an e-commerce thing. It's something I can do from the farm. It works for me because I buy a ton of seeds anyhow. So I can just buy, extras, chop them up, sling them off, and and take it from there. So we got to have a couple gimmicks, one of which you can pay with crypto very easily from the site. Use AnyPay. If anybody's looking for a crypto payment processor, I'm not going to say use them, but definitely check them out. They're super simple. They're just great. Anytime I've had an issue, I've contacted them. They get back to me really quickly, and we get the problem solved. And most of the time, the issue is just I'm a boomer. So when it comes to technology, a lot of times, so that's really been it. But yeah, and then I do fast shipping, I do inexpensive shipping, and then my other little Agorist gimmick is packaging. I've always really hated paper seed envelopes because they get wet, they come open, they fall apart, they get dirty. I just have always hated them. And
Mm-hmm.
so I put our seeds, they come in little glass vials for most of our higher end seeds. And then otherwise nice plastic Ziploc bags, like 4 mil thick bags. So they can stay clean and safe and durable. And, kind of looks like you're like slinging drugs. So it's kind of funny. Like, hey man, you got the tomatoes,
You got the good stuff, man.
yeah. So they're the little glass vials like you see in the movies when they're selling drugs, and so that's really fun. I 3D print funnels that I design, and I 3D print and I include them in the order so you can refill the vials easily if you pour out too many seeds or whatever.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I throw in that, and I do if you pay with crypto, I throw in some extra seeds or something, or some stickers or 3D printed gizmos, or something, some little bonus items and some extra seeds, because I definitely want to encourage any sort of crypto purchases. And I also want to say, if there is anybody out there who does do it with crypto and the coin you don't see on the site that AnyPay accepts, just shoot me an email and I'll accept pretty much any crypto as long as I can swap it out on exchange for something I like. I'll take pretty much anything.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I'm a big fan of using Monero myself. I try to do a lot of
Mm-hmm.
transactions in Monero anytime I can be able to, maybe buy somebody like garage sale style or whatever. I'll try to pay for it in Monero
Mm-hmm.
and things like
Yeah,
that.
privacy coins are definitely a plus, dude. Monero's great. I like R. I wish it would get moving a little more, but whatever. It's still kind of new. But yeah, Monero definitely does seem to be the standard privacy coin, and I've used it a few times. I like it.
Yeah, so are you still raising the Cornish cross chickens and selling those like in your local market?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Awesome.
we are. Currently, right now, I don't have any on the pasture because it's been so hard to get birds since 2020. It's been so spotty. I've been waiting on them for weeks, but I'm supposed to be getting 100 or 150 next week. So that'll be nice. We sell them at the farmers market. I do a lot of deliveries. We use something called farmmatch.com, which is a really cool site where you can find local farmers near you that deliver. It's really good on the farmer's end. It was actually designed for the Amish, which seems kind of odd, a website for the Amish, but
Yeah, I think
what
I
I'm
think
saying is
I'm
it's simple.
yeah, I think I met that guy. His name's Max Kane, I think the guy that created that.
Max Kane, yes.
Yeah.
Super cool. Yeah. He was heard about him on Tom Wood show, and talked to him. Super cool guy, man. Yeah, I signed up. He called me in like 5 minutes. It was amazing.
Oh wow. Yeah. I met him at the Rogue Food Conference up in Lewisburg, Tennessee, not too long ago. Um, And yeah, that's a cool project. Um, yeah, you were
That was
telling.
the one that Joel Salatin was at, was it? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I know he was doing something with Joel, or maybe that's
Yeah, yeah,
upcoming.
Joel was there. Yeah, Joel was there too.
Oh, right on, dude.
That was another fanboy moment where I was like, "Oh man, you're such a
I
big
sent him a
influence."
fanboy email. I was like, dude, I don't know if you read these, but like, I have you to thank for putting me on this path and blah blah blah. And he's like, he sent me, he's like, thank you. This is why I do it. You know?
Yeah,
Oh my
man.
god. Yeah,
Yeah, he's
I
a
feel
true
you.
inspiration to a lot of folks, man. I mean, um, just the way that they do things, you know, that he's just really creative on how he's doing everything, and then putting the information out. Like you said, he wrote those books to basically get the information out on how
Mm-hmm.
them and their operation works and was successful, or the successful parts from all the lessons they learned. And that's kind of a big thing that I try to talk about on this show is kind of open sourcing ideas and open sourcing technologies and things that I'm learning. I try to just share the lessons learned along
Mm-hmm.
the way with folks, and you know, it's easy to like. I guess it's not easy to be an expert, but I don't know. I guess I like to just share the ups and downs and everything with people too. That way they
Yeah.
know what they're getting into. It's not
And you
all
can cut.
rainbows and walks in the park.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's especially with homesteading. That's something people on the surface seem to at least think they know that when they go in, but you really have to be prepared to kill things that you don't want to have to kill.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And but yeah, dude, like I love teaching and I love helping. Not like I couldn't teach in like a classroom or something, but like with stuff like this, really like I really enjoy it. I love showing people things that can improve their life, and it's satisfying, And if I can just, and I even say with people, especially with homesteading, your homestead is going to be yours. It's going to be different. It's going to be unique. You're going to have different problems. But if I can help cut a few mistakes out for you that I've made already, like let me
Yeah.
give you my advice. You don't have to take it 100% or whatever, but as long as it can at least help your decision making processes, maybe sometimes just seeing something done that you've only read. I mean, I've had things where I read about it 100 times and you just, man, I just don't get it. But you got to get in there. You got to get your hands in it. You got to fuck it up. You got to make mistakes and you got to learn it. Sometimes it's just the way it is. But if you can see someone else do it and maybe ask a couple questions, God, can that make things easier?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think I'm kind of that way. I have to do it and figure it out by hand. I can't. I can
Mm-hmm.
watch a bunch of stuff and kind of get the gist and put me on a path that I probably wouldn't have got to on my own. It would probably take me a long time to get there, but there's no substitute for being out there and just doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of all that, we were talking a little bit about how it's been hard to get birds. You said that
Mm-hmm.
you're supposed to be receiving some birds pretty soon,
Mm-hmm.
within the next week. Uh, this week, I saw a video put out by the Murray McMurray Hatchery talking about their having to scale back, I guess, because of this whole avian flu thing that's going around. So, what do you think? What do you think the implications of that are going to be? Is it just going to get harder for folks to be able to get these chickens in the future here? Is this going to be a severe hit to, people getting their own backyard chickens, I guess?
It's definitely a concern. Just all the supply line stuff with 2020 all around has made it tough. It's sort of the last couple of years has been tough to get chickens. When they shut down, like, I mean, they had to shut down like these hatcheries and like the post office and stuff for like. There's been so much that's happened in the last 2 years, so bear with me. I don't remember the exacts, but it was like these hatcheries couldn't ship for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously they had the incubators going ahead of time. They just had to kill millions and millions of chicks because they couldn't ship them to us. Like we had orders and they couldn't ship them.
Wow.
The USPS is the only person, to my knowledge, and I've inquired about this, is the only people who can like legally ship live animals like that. So like UPS can't do it or whatever. It's USPS. So we're pretty like severely limited. Um, by that when it comes to shipping chickens, because that's how we get our birds. The closest place I can go and pick up broilers, which I've done, is Georgia. So there's a hatchery up there that I've been able to actually go pick up birds because the post office was so hairy and I didn't want to risk them dying. But yeah, it's definitely been a challenge. Until you said something just now, we were talking about this bird flu thing the other day, and I have thoughts on that. But it didn't even occur to me that, oh yeah, they might have to kill a bunch of chickens, at these industrial chicken houses, and that's really unfortunate. And also, since you mentioned that, it makes me think like I was supposed to get them on Monday, but they called me and said, "Oh, we got to push it back like another few days, another delivery." So I'm wondering if that wasn't some sort of reason why, if that didn't have something to do with it. It's definitely possible. This bird flu thing comes up every year, or nearly every year, or this avian flu. I think this one particular, I'm not even sure if it's one that like really messes with people, but it really affects these industrial chicken houses. And this avian flu, as far as I know, has never been found in like a backyard flock. It's just industrial chicken houses. So like if a chicken eats grass, like pasture stuff, they don't get sick. They're healthy enough. These chickens in the chicken houses, they're fed constant antibiotics. They're have all sorts of vaccinations. They're fed medicated feed. All this regimen of stuff just to keep them alive in these disgusting settings that they're raised in. It's really abhorrent. So that makes them so weak. It makes their immune system so weak. Just like we've seen, if you didn't already know how the immune system works, hopefully you've learned in the last couple of years that like constant sterilization isn't good for you. Like you want to build up your immune system, come fucking get your hands in the dirt. Come get some chicken shit under your nails. It helps, I promise.
Yeah. Well, in fact, my buddy raises sheep, and he has a guy that comes up from Mexico. They raise sheep down there as well. And what they're starting to have to do, since feed costs have started to go up, they've cut their vaccinations on their animals because they're basically just culling the weak ones and allowing the herd to be more robust. The more robust ones are going to survive. And he was saying that, you might help support more population of the sheep if you employ a vaccination schedule, because it might be able to save some that would rather have died. But when you look at into the future, you're going to have a more robust flock if you just like stop the whole vaccination scheme. But yeah, it's like how does a farmer, because my buddy is wanting to do this on a pretty massive scale with these sheep, and he's got the land for it, and it's just like he wants to have as many lambs to be able to bring to market as possible. So the farmers I got to go over there and help him for a little bit, and I was like, man, I don't think I can give him these vaccines, dude. and it was like he made me do a couple, and I was like, nah, this isn't for me, dude. and but yeah, he was explaining how you end up with a more robust animal, and in the long run, but you're going to lose a portion of your flock that you might not be able to bring to market.
Well, especially the bigger animals, like when I'm talking about chickens, it's real easy for me to say, like, we don't give them anything, and I've been people say, well, what if they're sick? Don't you give them antibiotics? I'm like, no, if they're sick, they don't need to be in the flock, like exactly what you were saying. We don't, we're not trying to breed bad genetics. Especially in our layer flock, that we take eggs and we hatch the incubator, etc. So that is really important. When you start getting to the larger animals that live for longer, and are worth more money, then so like we have a couple goats that we got from a buddy up in Georgia, and we give them a dewormer once a year. Which, to be honest, when like we had a vet come out and look at them and do tests, and they said they didn't even have any detectable levels of parasites in them, which they were like shocked by. And it's like, well, we don't do anything special. They just live in a nice pasture,
Yeah.
But but so we get, it's like in their feed and it's like a dewormer and we give that to them. I think it's like once or twice a year. I'm not too concerned about like that, but I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's probably definitely situations where it might be called for. Again, everybody's, situation is different. Do the math, figure out,
Right.
what really is the issue. But I generally do try to go for the more natural approach. You might lose some, but especially if you have a breeding program, then you really want to look for those better genetics. You don't want to, and what I'm about to say, I'm not a eugenicist or anything, so let's just go along with me here for a second.
Yeah.
But like we can look at like medical science and modern medical technology, and I wouldn't be alive if it weren't for modern medical technology. I have several devices in my heart that thank God for them. If I was born a decade earlier, I probably wouldn't be alive.
Yeah.
So I'm not not knocking that. I'm not a Ted Kaczynskiite or anything, but
Yeah.
like obviously when medical technology that allows unhealthy people to maintain unhealthy habits or people who have medical deformities or whatever to reproduce more, I don't think it's necessarily good for the general health of the population in a lot of cases.
Right.
It's the same kind of thing when you coddle the weak ones and you breed them, you just get more of those defects or what have you, or weaknesses or whatever. Where when you pick the strong ones, obviously you're gonna get better ones, and it's not even their genetics has a big part of it, but I really do think a lot of it is how they're raised, and this goes to people too. I mean, I think a lot of our health problems are more bad habits than they are reproducing bad genes. But when you're raising something in a outdoors, fresh air, fresh grass, I mean that's the key to healthy agriculture. And that's also how you do. Because really, if you're an animal, like if I was raising pasture raised cattle, I wouldn't say I'm a cow farmer. The proper thing would be I'm a grass farmer because that's what I'm raising and the cows are eating, and same sort of thing. So
Yeah, you're building the soil.
Mm-hmm. You're building the soil. You're sequestering carbon. You're pulling carbon out of the air and depositing it in the ground. It's a really amazing process. And pasture raised cattle can actually sequester more carbon than forests, than trees. So it's like very useful because you're doing two things. You're helping the environment. The same thing. People are like, oh, we need that stand of trees there. They can't really do anything with, but it looks pretty and it gets some, processes carbon. But when you have this area where, oh, we get meat out of it and it's processing just as much carbon, it's like, well, that's kind of seems like the winner to me. I love the woods. I'm not saying mow down the woods and let's put it all on cattle. That's not what I'm saying. People like to make that claim when I say that, but that's not what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. Joel Salatin really shows that with the way that he does the rotational grazing with the cows
Mm-hmm.
and has the chickens follow and all that kind of stuff. And I recently was watching a podcast with Joe Rogan was interviewing Sad Guru, and he was talking about how our soils are being pretty much depleted of most of the trace minerals and things like that. And that is one of the reasons why we're becoming sicker. It's one of the reasons we're just like void of a lot of these trace minerals in our bodies, so our innate immune systems can't function at the highest level that they should. And so
Mm-hmm.
basically over time, as we keep losing these trace minerals in our soils, as we keep using these fertilizers like the NPK fertilizers in our industrial farming process, we're just gonna continually lose that stuff in our own bodies, so that we're gonna be weaker overall if we
Mm-hmm.
continue to deplete the soil. So I think it's like probably one of the most important things and an opportunity, because we can see this problem. It's an opportunity for entrepreneurs and people that want to. I I I think I mean I just thought about this today. Is like that's a huge business opportunity, is to just do compost and sell good soil.
Mm-hmm. Dude, and it's not even, here's the thing, it's not even the selling the compost where you make your money. You make your money from taking in the waste that you make the compost with. I have a soil farm that I love. I've gotten tons of compost from them. The county is not renewing their business license this year. They have been in a legal battle for years. It's a fucking nightmare. But anyhow, they're shutting down this year, unfortunately. But when I go there, they're they have to like call a dude to come get me my compost. Like they barely sell compost, but what's hustling is tree services, dropping off uh, loads of tree
Oh
waste,
yeah, all the
and
wood chips and everything.
mm-hmm. and that's what they use it for. So those tree services are paying them to take the shit, and that's where they're making their money. It's not even selling the compost, but otherwise it ends up in the fucking landfill. I'm sorry, can I curse on here?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. I always forget to ask before I start showing. Like, oh god.
yeah.
Okay. But yeah, man. Otherwise, it ends up in the landfill, and that's obviously a huge waste because it's taking up space. The carbon isn't going to good use. It could be going to someone's garden. So there are huge opportunities there, man. Unfortunately, I've heard so many stories. A lot of the stories I hear, these kind of semi-agricultural businesses getting in trouble with the law. It's like always an instance with one of these compost places. And more often than not, it's like, I don't know if saying the community surrounding it is the one causing the problem, but it's kind of the case. So there's a story that I read about where basically there was a place making compost, and the local people were like, "Oh, what if a bird comes and picks up a piece of compost and then carries it into my yard and drops it in my yard, and I get sick because of it?" So they had to put like netting over the whole compost like operation so birds couldn't get in there. This one near me, the local community has been complaining for years that it smells bad. Well, you know what this soil factory is directly next to? The county landfill that stinks.
Oh man.
And so the county's not going to admit it's them. So I'm curious what happens when they shut them down here and it still stinks, but it's right next door to the landfill. And the landfill smells. I go to the compost factory, it smells delicious. It smells like that. That good earthy dirt wood chip smell. Oh, it's so good. It smells great. So I don't know if the people are just misinterpreting it. I don't know if they don't know what they're looking at. I don't know, but it's really frustrating. But I mean, we had the county try to shut our farm down. It was a whole nightmare. You were just talking about like game soils and everything, these industrial farming practices, and it was just so insane. Like I had to go to this here with like the special magistrate, and I'm sitting there with the Department of Agriculture, who, because of some clerical thing, I wasn't able to apply to be a farm at the right time of year, so they denied me. We had to go to this court thing, and I'm explaining to this magistrate who doesn't know anything about farming, why with my 6 acres, I can't have all 6 acres under cultivation anytime. I'm explaining to him crop rotations and stuff. The people from the county are saying, well, this type of farm doesn't exist in this county. The average farm is 20 acres. It's a monocrop, so we're going to approve him as agriculture use, which would have meant I couldn't have had my farm. I had to move all my buildings off the property. I couldn't build. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't have any plants over 18 inches tall. Just a whole like nightmare scenario. Just because a realtor down the street called the county on me. But at any rate, it went on for 6 months. If I wasn't an anarchist before that, I would have been after. Anybody who's dealt with a really crappy bureaucratic situation just knows that nothing makes sense. The people you're dealing with in the county don't even know their own jobs. I know the what do you call it? The ordinance that I'm accused of breaking, it's sent out, and this code enforcement officer has to keep looking at the show reference because he doesn't even know what he's there. The whole thing was just a nightmare. But anyhow, yeah, I had to explain to the local county how organic farming works, and we were able to convince the magistrate. We won, and the county hasn't messed with us. That was probably a good 5 years ago. Was when this went on, and I'm terrified and looking over my shoulder the whole time. Now that I'm aware of what the rules are, it's easier to bend them.
Yeah, you can do more jujitsu with those now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I've helped several people get agricultural, status, or at least help them work through their issues to try, because I've actually done it. And I know what they look for, and I know that there's only 5 rules that regulate what is and isn't agricultural use, and they knew, like, even going into this, the inspector, like, told me, he was like, look, man, he's like, we're gonna have to go through all this. You know what the rules are, whether or not you're violating them. And I wasn't, and he knew I wasn't, but he was just telling me, look, we got to go through this whole dog and pony show because it's just what we do. So it's what we did. And I will say this to anybody listening to, like, there's a good chance at some point you'll deal with some sort of code enforcement or some county thing or just some nonsense bureaucratic stuff. And the tendency of a lot of people, and I hear this from like these people who live around me, these like conservatives, these they claim they're anti-government, but they're not actually. You know the type, right? Um, Say, oh yeah, they had to shoot the county. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? You can't fight it. You can't find it. Fucking what? You can't fight it. Like make their lives hell.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
maybe you won't win, but make it uncomfortable for them. These fuckers are used to people rolling over on them or whatever for them,
Yeah, just
and
just giving up
it's
and saying,
unacceptable.
"Oh,
Mm-hmm.
govern me harder, Daddy."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dude, and these are the things that most normies have dealt with, and they know is ridiculous. Oh yeah, they've had some addition put on their house, and the inspector was a dickhole and didn't didn't pass them for some stupid thing, and they know it's nonsense. And but yeah, man, people roll over for them, and don't. I mean, fight it. Even if you don't win, make them work for it, dude, because they are not used to it. And you will catch them in some ridiculous lines of reasoning if you try and talk to them about it. It's if it wasn't so frustrating and whatnot, it'd be funny. But obviously, it's not when you're in the situation. It's very disheartening. It really kills your gumption to do this thing. I mean, you're excited about this project, dude. We're building this farm. This is going to be great. And then I have to take a pause and dedicate 6 months to dealing with the county. It really sucks. It really hampers you. But fuck you gonna do, man? You got to move on. There's always someone trying to fuck with you, whether it's a state or otherwise. You
Yeah.
gotta be ready for it.
Yeah, I like how uh, Jack Spirko puts he calls it status jujitsu.
Oh yeah,
And
I
then,
love him. By the
yeah,
way.
yeah, he's great, man.
Mm.
He's gonna be up in the Self Reliance Festival up in Tennessee in June.
Oh, okay.
So he just said that he's gonna make it up there. We've been going to that. We've got a group up here in northern Alabama, and we've been going as a Freedom Cell group, and we've been going to a few of those Self Reliance festivals. We'll be going to the third one that they're putting on, and yeah, he's going to be up there. But yeah, it's always one of those things where, and I've gone down the rabbit hole of looking into the whole legalese thing and how, in legal terms things are defined in certain ways,
Mm-hmm.
and if you can understand some of that to a certain degree, and you can, like you said, just give them a hard time about it. Don't let them just walk over you. A lot of times they'll back down
Maybe you'll make
because
them
they're,
see they're pieces of shit. I don't know.
yeah, maybe
Sorry, go ahead.
maybe you'll make them realize it deep down. I'm such a piece of shit for doing this to this guy that's just trying to live on his property.
I wouldn't hold your breath, but it's worth a shot.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe they'll see the light, but yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where, just like you said, like these guys are cowards for the most part, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't like people coming back at them because they're not used to it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, uh, so yeah, man, if somebody is wanting to maybe get started with gardens and things like that, with everything that's going on in the world right now, you got any like tips or suggestions on what they could start with, like if they wanted to get something
Sure.
going right now?
Sure. So generally, and right now is like a great time for it. I mean, any time's a great time. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, et cetera, et cetera. But right now with the supply chain, I mean, this is the first time in my life I remember going to stores and shit not being on the shelves like what you expect it to be. And my chicken business has blown up a little bit since 2020 because people are realizing that. They want to make friends with me when this shit happens.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I need a source. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So the first thing I'd say is start thinking seasonally. First off, like and I mean it's great. Like we're so spoiled. We can go to the grocery store and get stuff any time of year. That's not the way it works when you're gardening yourself. So you're gonna have to start thinking like that. And it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing because you know what, man, I'm looking forward to okra. Instead of just going down to the store and getting subpar okra year round, you get excellent okra a few months a year. That kind of thing. So there's a lot of joy involved as well. But my advice for getting started is start with some small perennials, like some herbs, something you're going to use when you cook every day. Okay. Because I'm sure you're cooking if you're gardening, and you should cook. It's a wonderful thing. But start with like herbs, stuff you can go out like when I'm cooking dinner, you walk out in your little garden. What can I use? Let me take some basil. Let me take some rosemary. Oh, these green onions are ready. Something that's easy. Start with some simple things that grow basically year round, or you can make work year round. Of course, it all depends on where you're at, but you know, figure it out. But I'd start with something small, some herbs, some perennials. And a perennial is something that just grows forever, an annual, something that you do every year. Um, tomatoes are great. Growing tomatoes are great, but one of the things that happens is you spend 4 months growing these tomatoes. You put a lot into them. You put a lot of time into them. You put a lot of resources. You got to get a trellis and the soil and a big pot. You do the whole thing. And then one of two things happens. Hornworms come and eat all your tomatoes, and you don't get any tomatoes.
Oh man, they've
Or
been
you
pretty
get,
bad this past season for us.
those things are nasty, dude. They're so crazy looking.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't necessarily the worst problem, but you get more than you know what to do with, right? So now you have this tomato, a plethora on your hands, and so you can give them away, and that's great, or you can preserve them, and that's great, but you might not have learned that yet. So then it's like, oh man, what do I do with these things? So make tomato sauce and freeze it. That's going to be your easiest thing to do. You don't need to can it or anything like that. Probably good for first year advice. And I'd probably stick to like a simpler tomato, like aroma or something, to start with. But yeah, you get into there's a big investment in those, and they're fun. I mean, grow tomatoes, and if you fuck them up, who cares? Try them again next season. That's how you learn. And I mean, what's it cost you? 20 cents in seeds, and some dirt. It's fine. Go for it. But yeah, I'd start with things like that. Like some herbs. Green onions are nice and easy. Again, just stuff you can use every day. I mean, you can use green onions every day when you cook. You can use herbs every day, and then start working your way up from there, man. Start getting a little bit when you get a little bit of space. Start with what you can. If it's containers, great. If you can make a little raised bed, excellent. Don't be afraid to purchase good quality dirt or amendments if you don't have it. I really like Fox Farm products. They've actually been selling them not just at like hydro stores. It used to be like a specialty thing. They're actually selling that stuff like Rural King now. And I don't know if you have Rural King where you're at, but it's awesome.
Yeah, we got one.
But it's like $20 for a bag of dirt. Like it's not cheap, but like you don't have to fertilize it. Like it's nice. It doesn't hurt to get decent dirt, get some decent nutrients. But just start small, play around. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. You will. Sometimes it's not your fault. I've killed more plants than I've successfully grown. Nothing wrong with that. It's how you learn. Some other things I might recommend is if you don't want something too intensive, you can try some trees. If you're somewhere far enough south, you can do like Moringa trees. That's a big deal. They're pretty easy to grow. Fruit trees are always really fun. They tend to be a little bit pricey, and sometimes some of them can be a little tricky. So make sure you do your research before you just go pick up a fruit tree at Tractor Supply or something. Drop $60 on this tree, and it might not even grow in your region very well.
Yeah.
So do a little bit of research before you, because trees are a good investment. Or when I say good, I mean sizable investments for sure. But they can be very rewarding. I mean, it's something that your grandkids might be able to sit under years after you're dead, and that's just an amazing thing to think about. So that's really cool. But a lot of investment in a tree, and if you don't understand how the fruit works, you might have problems. But trees are great, and they can be good for landscaping. Indoor stuff is cool if you have the need for that. Like if you're really far up north, or I mean, even for us this far south, the heat is a huge issue for gardening. But indoor stuff's cool. I like microgreens. They're fun, pretty easy to do inside. Sunflower microgreens are really good. They can be a little intensive. So a lot of it just depends on your level of involvement. How much do you want to be involved? How much time you want to spend out there every day? It's easy to get overwhelmed. It's easy to plant too much and get overwhelmed and then everything fall apart. So general homesteading or anything like this too, I'd say take it a project at a time. That's a lesson I've learned the hard way many times. Getting way too many projects going at once and then none of them come to fruition. Take your time. Take it slow.
Maybe start with like one raised bed or something like that. And you just focus on that.
Get the hang of it. And it feels like doomsday or whatever is around the corner. You feel like it's never going to get done. But we were just talking the other day. I was like, dude, we've been doing this farm 8 years now. It does not feel like that long. We've made so much progress, but it feels so slow as you're going. But just take your time, have faith in yourself, have fun with it above all. If it's a big chore and a big to do and you're not enjoying it, what are you really getting out of it?
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast with was John Willis and Nicole Sauce, and then they had they had a couple on there, and they were all kind of having a discussion on, well, if things kind of fall apart, you got a lot of folks that are gonna want to try to team up with somebody that's already got something going on. And I've had this discussion with the folks in our group too, and it's like, when you start talking about some of this stuff, and folks in your groups kind of get to know that you do this kind of stuff, they're like, hey, I'm coming to hang out with you, and maybe I might help myself to some of your stuff too. But we've had this conversation amongst our group, and it's like, well, no one's getting a free ride. Everybody that comes and shows up, you're getting put to work, And I think that it's like what we're moving into now with what looks like the planned collapse of the U.S. economy is that we're going to have to get more used to bartering and doing things with, maybe your neighbor has some equipment that you could use or something like that in exchange for something you're growing or whatever you got going on. And maybe you could use some extra hands in exchange for some stuff or whatever. So we keep the fiat out of it because it might be hyperinflated away. So so I kind of see that as something that might just out of necessity happen, is that everyone starts to become more familiar with doing barter deals and things like that in your local area.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm always, all for that, just because, because it is so funny when you think about like bartering versus doing like cash. It's like, okay, like bartering, I still made this item, I still spent my time or whatever. But if I give you money, I went and somewhere else and worked for someone else and did some other shit job that I hate for them to give me money for me to give you. And it's like, I'd rather just do the thing I like and trade, and just keep, and again, when you buy something or trade with somebody that like it builds, trade builds confidence, it builds relationships, it builds peace, basically. What's that Bastiat saying, where goods don't cross borders, troops will? And I mean, it's so true. I mean, I have almost like a weird religious, maybe semi-erotic, like attraction to markets. Like it's just when I started learning Austrian economics, already sort of dabbling in farming and stuff, it felt like nature. The way markets function, it feels like the way nature functions.
Yeah.
When there's a niche, something moves in, right? Something takes it over, something fills that gap, if there's an overpopulation of something handles it. Just this balancing act that nature and the universe kind of have is just the way I sort of see markets functioning. And markets don't mean money transacting. A market transaction is just any voluntary transaction between two people. That could be me giving you a gift, that could be us bartering, that can be anything. It's not just a purchase is made. So it's not just that cash nexus. It's I don't know, just all that has an effect in it. I'm just so about like community these days, especially like 2020 happens, and like we don't really know what to expect, right? Like a lot of us have a general idea that things aren't going to get better,
Right.
but we don't really know what to expect. Like, is it going to be this? Is it going to be that? Is there going to be, where will the power outages be that they blame on Russia? Where, all this stuff. Like, there's all these possibilities. Yeah. So let's just be as prepared as possible for whatever. Like, and I love like the Jack Spearco model, like for when times get tough, or even if they don't. Yeah. Because if it gets really bad, hey, we're a little prepared. And I mean, even like just me having a bunch of meat in the freezer means that if there is any sort of supply chain thing, be it nefarious or not, there's less meat in the grocery stores, whatever. Just me not needing to go to the grocery store is helping other people around me because the meat's there for them. So even if it's just a week or two that there's a supply chain hiccup, I'm not one of the people that's needing, it's almost like you're a battery, when you're a prepper or whatever, you're like a battery. And when there's a shortage somewhere else, you're running yourself, and that helps everybody because you're not also clamoring for those same supplies.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's even just, having 2 extra packs of paper towels is like, okay, well, the paper towels can go away for a couple of weeks and I'm not flustered by it.
Yeah, you're not a further strain. You're not a further strain on the supply chain, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So you just, you get to be, I mean, you're helping you're helping everybody by helping yourself in this regard by being more prepared. And then, yeah, I mean, I live in a pretty, I mean, we've got like this loop. It's like, I don't know, a mile and a half long. There's maybe half a dozen houses or families. I mean, on the other side, there's like 600 migrant workers, but like, we all kind of know each other, and we'd help each other out. There's a thing, I mean, we'd all come running with guns if need be, it's, we don't barbecue on the weekends or anything, but we're tight enough. If we wanted to be tighter, we live in the city. We don't we don't want to barbecue with our neighbors every weekend, so we live out here. But yeah, man, it's I really just have been like, one thing you need to be able to count on is your community, the people around you, and anything you can do to build that is good. And what's really tough, and I'm sure you've experienced this, it's like I have a freedom cell, or I'm in a freedom cell. Well, I definitely don't run it. I'm not nearly as involved as I'd like to be. Some of the people in it are doing some really amazing things.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a lot of great friends who are Liberty friends who I call brothers. But you know what? They're in Ohio. They're in Michigan.
Yeah.
They're in Texas. They're in these other states. And so it's like I have this great online community of support, whether it just be emotional even, of friends. And it's really great. But it's like, man, like that doesn't do me much good in a lot of bad situations that are possible. It's having this community with my neighbors. But it's tough because the people who are going to be closest aligned with me politically near me have Trump flags in their yard, right? So,
right.
And I'm sure some of them are fine people, but
mm-hmm.
but it just sucks. That's like as close as you can get, right? And I mean, out here it's fine. They don't want fucking all the, like. Sorry, I don't want to get too whatever off topic of political stuff, but they align with me very close. Living in Florida, Florida's like the freest state in the union right now.
Yeah, I know.
Crazy,
it's it's like the bastion of freedom right now.
Yeah. Well, and it's been like, and again, it's 2020 has really like had me like, and I'm an agorist, you know what I mean? But I really do have to make some observations and ask some questions here. And one of them is like, okay, so our sheriff is actually pretty famous for being like a real hard ass. But what he wasn't doing during COVID was anything COVID related. He wasn't arresting pastors. Over in Tampa, the sheriff was arresting, it's the next county over, the sheriff was arresting pastors holding church services.
Wow.
They weren't doing that shit here, Now, you get caught with some weed or whatever, like he's going to bust your ass, So, but it's like, I don't know, man. I really have to like, think like, because as an agorist, like politics don't fucking matter, right? Whatever. I ain't involved in that shit. But like, man, you really do have to admit, like at some point, like that kind of mattered. Who my sheriff was kind of mattered. And he's not somebody I like, but I'm glad I lived in his county. And also like I can go buy 3 guns in a week here and he's not going to care. If you buy more than 2 guns in a month, or handguns especially, in most places they report to your sheriff if you didn't know that.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. If you buy, I think it's nationwide, but otherwise most states, if you buy like a certain amount of guns in a certain amount of period from like a gun store, they tell your sheriff. Whether or not he cares depends on where you live. My sheriff don't care. He says more guns the better. He says get guns. We're 30 minutes away.
Yeah.
So he's honest about that. So, but that really does kind of make a difference in my day-to-day life here. Like in Orlando, you couldn't go into Home Depot without a mask. I barely put on a mask through the whole thing, except like hospitals and shit, where you just couldn't get around it. So, it's the whole local thing really does matter all around. I think, you need to have a good community. And if you're doing some sort of homesteading or farming thing and you're going to farmers markets, you're going to meet cool people, man. They might not be 100% where we are, but they're going to be pretty close, and at least somebody you can live with or live next to. And it's okay. They're not calling the cops on you for stupid bullshit. And that's what's important.
Right. Yeah. I think, I was talking with Shane about this, I had him on last week, or actually, I guess it's been a couple weeks now, but yeah, we talked about that for a little bit. And, if you're running some kind of farm, or maybe you need some reinforcements to build a community or whatever, what's some type of vetting process. And we've been talking about this locally as well. And that's kind of what our vetting process is turning into, is you're going to be like kind of like an intern for a while we kind of figure you out or whatever. And then you're probably only going to be brought in by maybe somebody from the group that knows you. and there's going to be kind of an internship process if you're, looking to escape the madness.
Yeah. It's always such a tough like it's a tough hurdle, and I know that Shane talks about this kind of stuff a lot. Like, you don't get to just come to their what do they call it, Pasnia, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that what I'm thinking of? You don't get to just come there. Like,
Yeah.
they have to know you.
Yeah.
You know.
Somebody has to know you. Yeah. You have
Yeah.
to be
So
connected to
they're
be
all
vetted.
about the OPSEC, and
Mm-hmm.
that's awesome, and that's something that I need to be, because I'm just very, hey, you want to come in? Let me show you. Let me teach you how to do this shit. But then you always do have to wonder, though, And then if you just act like everybody's a Fed, then it's like, okay, then it's okay. Don't tell them anything you wouldn't, either way, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it is always that vetting process that's tough for me, because even when we sell our chicken online through Farm Match,
Mm-hmm.
that ain't legal. That ain't legal on the permit I have in Florida to sell online,
Right.
But everybody does it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do it. And worst case, if they say something, I can make it private. So you have to have a password to see my menu and order. So then I have to come up with some sort of vetting process. But it's like, man, what do I do? Is the Florida Agriculture Department allowed to lie to me and pretend to be a customer and ask me? I don't know what their MO is. I don't even know if they care. To be honest, the people who came out and did my inspection, these people didn't even know anything about it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm asking the inspector questions, and she's like, I don't know, just check the website. I'm like, yeah, I've read the website 17 times. That's why I'm asking you for clarification on these items. But they didn't even seem to know or care. It's almost just like, so what we do for our chicken is, it's called the Florida Limited Poultry Permit, and it came around in 2013. They started allowing us, because they're so benevolent, to process and sell chicken and eggs on a small scale on a farm. And it's pretty easy. It's $110 a year. I just consider it a bribe. The reason I never did it is because there's this list of things you need, including 5 sinks, floor drain, septic systems, covered thing, this whole thing. I basically did the math, figured it'd take $10,000 to do it. Selling the maximum amount of eggs you're allowed to sell, it'd take you 10 years just to make your money back.
Wow.
And I was pretty upset about this and never did the permit and said, screw it, I'm selling as pet food. It's easy to get a feedmaster's permit. Talking to a local old man farmer of mine, he's like, nah, man. He's like, just do it. He's like, when they come to inspect, they just come to your front gate. And I'm like, what? He's like, don't worry. It's not even. He's like, I don't have any of that shit either. So I called, set the thing up. The girl comes out, comes to my front gate, sits in her car for an hour and does paperwork. I tried asking her questions. She didn't know shit. She had me sign some shit and left. And now I give them $110 a year and they leave me alone. So it's, I almost think it's just
kind of the cost of doing business.
Yeah, that. And I try to figure why are they allowing me to do this? I'm always like, what's the deal? And I think it's just enough to stave off lawsuits. It's just, they're giving us just enough to where people aren't going to sue for the right to sell fucking eggs to your neighbors.
Uh-huh.
But it's complaint based. So they never come inspect unless somebody complains. So there's limits on how much I'm allowed to sell. I have to keep it under a certain limit, which I'm well under. But also that means that anytime that one of the big guys, if they think I'm getting big or they don't like me or whatever, they can just pick up the phone and make a call and make a complaint. It doesn't have to be real, and they'll come inspect and find something to shut me down over, Like, on the one hand, a complaint-based system seems cool. If there's no problem, no harm, no foul. But the downside is, just anybody can just pick up the phone if they don't like you.
Yeah.
Just shut down. So it kind of sucks. And I don't know what the ultimate solution is on this kind of thing.
I do have one thing that I've been looking into is the Private Membership Association that we've been looking into, a few of us in the group, and basically you have some kind of a contract or whatever that you draw up, and it could be like some money that you refund after so many sales or something like that, but essentially the people become a member, and now they're entering into a private contractual agreement, and that now becomes something that is outside of the public, so it doesn't fall under the same jurisdiction as all the other public stuff does. So that's maybe one avenue that could be the statist jujitsu move that might be helpful. And then there was I interviewed Neethi Bali. She started her own uh, what she calls a food church, and it's basically the same concept. You become a member. Her doors are not open to the public, and she is the high priestess of meat or whatever, basically. Um,
That's
and
awesome. I think I heard about a milk church for raw milk one
Yeah, so
time.
this is how people are getting around it, and
Yeah,
this was
that's
a big
great.
part of the Rogue Food Conference, was talking about the
Hell
statist
yes.
jujitsu methods, and the food church was one, and a private membership association is another way of doing it as well.
Yeah, those are ones I've like a private supper club or something,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I've thought about that as a backup if it comes to it. The only reason I even like got the permit is just because I wanted to advertise. I'm like I don't want to be advertising trying to sell meat illegally, and I
Yeah,
don't want to
that's
advertise for pet consumption.
Yeah, that was one thing that they said. Yeah, was that
Hmm.
you don't want to like go broadly advertise what you're doing out there, and basically you just want to build like kind of a word of mouth network, essentially.
Hmm. See, I have like four pretty competitive markets near me. I'm where I'm located. I'm like an equal distance from Orlando, Tampa, St. Pete, some other cities a little further south, and some other smaller cities a little north. So
Oh
I'm in
yeah,
a
those
really
are
good
pretty big
spot.
cities. Yeah.
Yeah, within an hour and a half or 2 hours of each of these. So I really want to be able to advertise and do market and stuff like that, and make this work, get my delivery setup going. Using FarmMash like we were talking about. They've got like this delivery. Oh man, it's great. Like really, if you're looking to do something like that and sell, check them out. If you're looking to do something like that and buy, check them out. And also, if you guys aren't familiar, localharvest.org is another place you can type in your zip code and they'll find all the like local farms and butcheries and things like that near you. So that's another really good tool. That one's been around for quite some time, so it's pretty popular. As far as I know, pretty much everybody's on that. So that's a pretty good one.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that you guys go to the farmers market and you guys have some mantids that you guys sell there.
So my wife got a praying mantis for Christmas this year as a pet
Uh
from
huh.
a coworker whose wife breeds and raises them, and it turns out they're really cool pets. And so this last week she comes home with like a dozen babies,
Oh
and we're like,
wow.
well, let's take them to the farmers market and try to sell them. And we didn't actually make any sales on the mantises, but it brings a lot of people over
Oh
and
yeah.
gets them to talk to you, and that's really big at the market. One of the reasons we sell dog treats. They're chicken feet that we put in the dehydrator from our chickens,
Okay.
and they're these amazing dog treats. But we have them in a big jar on the table, and that brings people over. They're like, oh my god, what's that? And then I get to tell them about what we do and pitch them on everything else, and it really helps. So they did a really good job of that. We didn't manage to sell any, but we're going to try and bring some and maybe keep working on those. I went to the market for years doing the veggies, and then with the meat and everything. We have a good local farmers market that they're really cool. They let us sell whatever. They don't, they're not. Some farmers markets are a real pain. You got to have all your insurances and this and that in order. Blah blah blah. But anyhow, I was doing like the chicken and the veggies, and took a little bit of a break this year because we ran out of chicken, and we just don't do it over the summer because it's too hot. But we just recently started going back, and so I've got my chicken, but now my wife has all her stuff, and she's doing. She has a little. I can't pronounce this word, but apothecary.
Yeah,
She
apothecary.
makes tinctures and yeah, natural medicine and stuff like that. And so now she's out selling me my chicken. Like she's selling way more of like her tinctures and stuff there. But we have so much going on our table. We have to reorganize our booth or something because people are like, "What do you guys do?" And I'm like, "Well, we grow and process chicken. So I got chicken over here. We've got tinctures over here, and I'm going to explain that. We've got custom hand-drawn pet portraits over here. We have praying mantises over here. This is a whole thing. Like, we got to work it out. We got to figure out what we're going to do with all this stuff. At the market now. I can get a second table or maybe a second booth. I don't know. We have to figure it out, but there's a lot going on.
Yeah, we got your one stop shop here
Yeah.
for all this stuff.
Oh, it gets frustrating though, man, because like there were some people that were my neighbors for years at the market, and they sell little Disney hair bows and shit,
Uh huh.
and they would sell $150 in bows a market. and I'd be like lucky to break like $60 in chicken, and it's frustrating. So I'm like, I have this great product, dude, the best chicken you're ever gonna eat. It's all healthy and environment, blah 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 blah, and I can't compete with Disney hair bows, and it's frustrating, man. But it is what it is. I mean, people, it's easy to stop and buy a bow, I guess. Buying a bag of frozen chicken while you're walking around with your kids might not be appealing. I get that, but it can be frustrating sometimes seeing the stuff that people do go for. Like if you're frying and selling donuts, whoo, you're gonna make hundreds of dollars. You
What
can do
what
it.
what about like do you do like where people could get like a subscription to you or something like that, so that like when they're at the market they can like sign up to be in the queue for the next time you have chickens or something like that?
Well, so I have a couple regulars who buy chicken from me at the market. Really, my goal at the market isn't necessarily to sell chicken that day. I mean, that's great, and I bring some chicken, but my main goal is to let people know I exist and get delivery customers.
Yeah.
So, I want to be able to go once a week, make my rounds, drop it off at your house. We don't even got to do this whole thing, and that's really ideal. So, just getting my name out there is a big thing. It only costs me $10 to have a booth. And a lot of it's just social. I go, I see my regulars, I get out every 2 weeks. I don't toot my own horn. I'm a personable guy. People like me when talk to me in person. I'm very passionate about this. So when I get in conversations with people, they enjoy it. I enjoy it. It gives me an opportunity to educate people on everything from eating healthy to farming to how much government sucks. I get to tell people government doesn't want you to eat this, and they go, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they, I really get to drive some shit home to people. Like, there's a lot I get to do by talking to people that I really enjoy. So that's always a plus for sure. But yeah, I mean, sometimes we have good days. I mean, we've had days where we've made well over $100 in the market, and that's great.
Cool.
But it is what it is.
Yeah.
We could go to bigger markets, but they're a pain.
Yeah. That was one thing that they did talk about at the Rogue Food Conference. That was a pretty cool event that they put on, because it was a lot of the farmers that have dealt with stuff that you're talking about, and having to deal with the bureaucracy, and then being able to find ways around it. Like one of the
Mm-hmm.
guys was really affected by all the mask rules and stuff in Kentucky, and he ran a little coffee shop, and they had these rules on like max capacities or whatever for inside his coffee shop. So, or he couldn't sell food or whatever inside there. So he hired a like a food truck that by the way they sold his coffee out of or whatever, and you could sit
Nice,
outside of
nice.
the shop, and like he kept
Hell
finding
yeah,
all these little ways around it, and so they
I
kept
love it.
like having to come after, and it was almost like what is it damn them Duke boys,
Take their hat off and throw it. Conflab it.
yeah. Oh,
Man,
so
I've had. Sorry, go ahead.
so yeah, talking about all your animals and with things that are going on in the supply chain. Are you looking ahead to like how you're going to get your feed for your animals? Is that something that you're considering? Like, do I need to grow some extra stuff in my garden to use as feed for the animals? Like, how are you thinking about some of that stuff? Is that becoming more scarce? Are you seeing, or
Hmm.
what are
Yeah,
you seeing
so
in
it,
that
it's
realm?
it's very concerning for me. Our feed prices in the last year have gone up 33% for our chickens. Goat feed just about matches that as well. So that's significant. I mean, I have to raise my prices, because of that. So I mean, I had to raise my prices this year. It sucks, but but so yeah, it's definitely a thing. And before the Russia nonsense was going on and all that, I'd heard stuff about like Biden or the government or whatever you want to call that thing, selling a lot of our commodity like grains to China or other countries or whatever. And I don't know the accuracy of that. It's out of my control. I don't put much thought into it. but it's a little concerning. And then so their feed prices go up, and that's what all this stuff is made out of. And I'm not wild about using conventional feed, but it is what it is. Um, so so a couple solutions. One, things like goats, we don't have to feed much because we have plenty of pasture. So that's
Mm-hmm.
cool. They pretty much take care of themselves. Heritage breed chickens, some egg layers, we can get by with feeding very little, feeding table scraps, stuff like that. But these broiler chickens, you you have to supplement with feed, and to grow enough feed for like corn and stuff, that's a lot.
A
That's a
monumental
lot of work.
task. Yeah.
It is. There's some stuff I can do to supplement. So if feed costs get really high, as long as feed's still around, even if it's still expensive, I can work with that. I can grow millet really easily here, so I can do that for a grain. Yeah, there's lots of greens. I can come up with some stuff. There's a company I've been trying to get with to buy feed from because I'm trying to do better than just conventional feed. But certified organic is a ripoff in my opinion, and just way too expensive. I mean, it's double the price of conventional feed. But I
Yeah.
found a company in Ohio who will deliver to me as long as I buy at least a ton, because they have a truck that comes down this far, and they sell non-GMO feed. So it's not certified organic, which is fine. I don't care about that, but it's
Yeah.
at least non-GMO. So that has that benefit. Also, it's not sprayed with as many pesticides. Just the fact it's non-GMO means it hasn't been drenched in Roundup. So it's at least better for the environment, etc. So that is the middle ground I'm trying to settle on, where I'm going to do the non-GMO, and I'm thinking about doing completely soy-free for my eggs. Spearco kind of got me convinced of that, to not feed your egg chicken soy. I'm not a big I think soy is evil, but he made a pretty good case for the what the estrogens, the plant estrogens, to build up in the ovum of the egg, because estrogen, egg, whatever. I'm not a scientist, so bear with me, guys. But
Yeah.
that he was like, it builds up, and he is just claiming, like, from him selling his duck eggs, he's like, the soy free ones. That's the ticket. So I'm thinking about doing soy free for my egg layers. But what's cool about this company is I can get them in bags, and as long as I buy a ton's worth, so I can get goat feed and chicken feed and layer feed and all this stuff in the same order. So that's what I'm working on doing. I just need to get to the point to where I'll go through a ton of feed a month, because you don't want it to sit around for more than a month. It's going to go bad. It's going to
Right.
lose nutritional value. Rats are going to get in it. Whatever. So I'm just trying to get big enough to where I can do that. But that's the best option I found for an improvement in feed. But anyhow, I guess my point of saying that is I'm hoping that by getting with a smaller company like that, that if I can be secured as one of their customers, that then I have somebody else hopefully fighting to get me my feed, because obviously they want to get paid. It's like I tell my regulars, look, man, if you're one of my regular customers and I'm delivering to you every month and shit hits the fan, you've got a portion of the meat in my freezer. Like, that's for you. If you're a regular customer of mine, that's for you. Like, I'm making it, I'm putting it in the freezer, I'm setting it aside for you. If you're a regular customer of mine, I want you to have chicken. I don't ever want you to call me and say, hey, you got chicken, and me say no, or at least not for you. Like, I'll stop taking on new customers. That's a great problem to have, to be honest. I'm sorry, I'm booked.
Yeah.
I can't take on any new customers. So yeah, if you're a regular of mine, I will keep your regular orders in the freezer for you, like 6 months in advance. You know what I mean? Like, it's so anyhow, hopefully I can get some of that same sort of customer service from a smaller feed company. You have somebody fighting for you in that regard. Their paycheck depends on you. So Tractor Supply don't care about me. Rural King don't care about me.
Oh yeah, my one of my buddies, we met at Anarchapulco in 2020, and he just recently got a CDL, and that's kind of what he's doing right now is agorist trucking in a way, because
Yes.
he gets paid in cash, and he's kind of doing it outside of the system a little bit on how they work it, because he was telling me one of the things that he did recently is he goes and gets filled up, and that's what he does. He delivers feed for farms, and
Nice.
so he'll go and get filled up. One of the stories he told me recently is he'll get filled up, but he'll be like, just if you put in, because he kind of gets paid per the weight of the product that he's delivering. So he's like, if you want to put a little extra in there, and the guys that are there is like, okay, we'll write you down for this, and go ahead, and I mean, if he gets caught, like, it's on him, but it's like he's outlawing it, man, like going through
Right.
the freaking way stations and stuff. And
Well, that's just so important, man. And so I've heard the agorist, what are they calling it, man? The OTR or whatever. I don't know if you're familiar with the Agora, the podcast. They've been talking about it a lot.
Yeah, Sec.
Fuck, what's it
I
called?
yeah,
Yeah.
I met Sec in Franklin, Tennessee when yeah, Derek Bros came through. We met. So yeah, I got to
Oh,
talk to
nice.
those guys. Those are great guys.
Yeah, man, for sure. And then they do a good show over there for sure. And they've been talking about the Agorist transport. Is that what it was? The Agorist transport a lot, and that because I really think that's a big deal. You know, we were talking about the chickens earlier and the difficulty in getting the chicks, and it's actually something me and a buddy of mine in Georgia have been sort of talking about because he has a hard time getting chicks. Period, just because the post office they die by the time they get to him, so he has to go pick them up in person. And so he's thinking about starting a hatchery. And I'm like, dude, do it because I hate being reliant on. You'd mentioned before the Murray McMurray or whatever. I don't use them. I use Ideal typically or Bob's Biddies in Georgia. But and they're both great. But but yeah, man, I was like, man, we need some sort of Agorist chick delivery service. You know, I was like, if you get a hatchery and then we get enough people who need chicks, and you know, I'll drive a van in a big loop and deliver chicks. You know, but yeah, something to cut the post office out because again, like we saw in COVID, they'll just stop. They said we're not going to deliver animals for 2 weeks. Like, oh, cool. A lot of animals are going to die, and a lot of people. No wonder there's supply chain issues. I can't get chicken to make food. You know, so it's
Yeah.
you know it's a big deal. But yeah, man, stuff like the Agorist transport. That's man, I'm all about those projects. If we can get some truckers, yeah, figuring out, you know, shooting some shit across the country. There's a lot of concern, like there's a lot of concerns because, like, depending on what you're shipping around, you know, we're agorists, right? It's like,
Yeah.
it's like you kind of want to tell the trucker, hey, be careful with this one, but at the same time, well, then there's plausible, like, what I'm curious of,
Yeah,
and maybe you know this one.
plausible deniability.
Exactly. Like, okay, a UPS driver delivers a package, and whatever's in the package, the UPS driver isn't going to get in trouble for delivering that package, right?
Right.
The sender receiver might have. So if I just give a package in a brown paper bag to a trucker friend of mine and say, "Hey, drop this off over there," he doesn't know why, but he would get in trouble. I'm wondering what that legal protection is. Is it like what is it about being a legal courier that gives you that protection? And then what's that barrier? What's that legal barrier to get that? Because like and this is just out of curiosity. I'm curious why the UPS driver doesn't get in trouble and my buddy would. You know, he doesn't know what's in the package. He just delivered a package. You know, so um, I just feel like that's a big hurdle.
Yeah.
With that sort of thing.
Well, I got a buddy that just got in the trucking business too, and he's learned a lot of stuff from. He had family members doing it as well, but a lot of these guys can get away with not having to go through getting all their numbers, like the MCL
Mm-hmm.
numbers and all these like commercial tags and all this stuff by doing vans that look just like their travel vans or whatever, and they're moving stuff with not necessarily letting anybody know about it. You know what I'm saying? Um,
I mean,
and
if you're on the
so
job, dude. I mean, look, obviously I'm not a fan of cops, but I've learned like if you're on the job, they tend to fucking leave you alone. You know what I mean? So unless like there's a tip on you or something like that, like I mean, when I used to deliver pizzas, like I got pulled over once delivering pizzas, and I didn't have a topper on. Cop pulls me over. He's like, "You deliver pizzas?" I was doing like 20 over. He's like, "Man, we sit here all the time. Get the fuck out of here. Slow it down." Like I was on the job. He didn't give a shit, if you're out there, you're trucking or something, I think they tend to fucking leave you alone, unless DOT or something, probably a different story, especially if you're a trucker. That's their fucking job. But even with shit like that, I mean, my father-in-law's a trucker, and I talked to him about it a little bit. And he's totally straight edge, but I was just asking about like way stations and stops and stuff, and he's like, "Man, I've never had." He's like, "There's I forget like Illinois or some state." He's like, "Just avoid that state and you're good." And I've never had an issue, but that state is hell. They will sit you on the side of the road for 4 hours, check everything, and they're gonna find something to write you a ticket for. So or whatever they do, citation or whatever. But yeah, man, there's lots of ins and outs though, and it's
yeah, we
the
actually
technology advancing makes smuggling a little trickier.
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways you can do some stuff like this. Like, you can have your dead drops where you do like a specific location or whatever you pick up there. There's
Mm-hmm.
no like interaction between the two parties really. So there's two parties can kind of stay anonymous to a certain extent. Um, Well, that's like that could be a whole discussion in and of itself.
Yeah, that's
And
fun to talk about. But thinking just legal stuff though, like we need an agorist. I need a way to get chicks across the country. That's what I need legally. Like I'm not even talking about sensitive shit here. It's a
yeah,
very important topic all around. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
But you're
we
right,
had,
smuggling's a topic for another day.
yeah, yeah. We got Uncle Bonehead is one of the listeners here, and he's a trucker. He's saying for over the road driver, whatever is in the trailer is legal. That he doesn't have to know unless it's hazmat. UPS and
Oh,
FedEx
interesting.
get away with it due to the size of the package, but they still have to know if it's a hazmat. The driver also has a right to know if it's illegal contraband. Uh, I need to add that whatever is in the trailer has to be marked on the bill of lading, is what he's saying. I don't know.
Okay,
Some of
that
those,
makes sense then. Yeah, so if there's just a mysterious crate in there, they're gonna be like, "Hey, what the fuck?"
yeah. Well, what's this doing in here? So,
Oh, interesting.
so one of the ideas that I've heard listening to that podcast today with John Willis and Nicole Sauce and the couple that they interviewed was talking about planting a bunch of fodder trees, what are called fodder trees,
Hmm.
and you can use that to make silage, um, which can be a feed for animals,
Hmm.
um, and they're using trees like hybrid poplar, white mulberry, and a hybrid willow.
Hmm.
And Nick Ferguson is one of the guys that talks about this, and he's a big proponent of this. This is how they used to.
Raretrees.com. Yeah.
Rareplantstore.com. Yeah,
That's what it is. Yeah, sorry. That's a different
yeah,
site. I'm sorry.
yeah. So Nick Ferguson's big on these fodder trees, and I think that's I picked up a bunch from him previous year, and I planted the hybrid poplar and willow and uh, white mulberry, and I think it is a good possible solution. I don't know how much the chickens could feed off of stuff like that, but I guess as much of like the uh, inputs you can grow off your own land, the better. Basically, moving
Oh
into the
yeah.
future that we're going into.
It's nice to have the option. The thing with chickens is they need a lot of protein, so that's why the grains are so important for the chickens. Grains are bugs, which I mean you can raise bugs. I mean you can raise crickets, you can raise black soldier fly larvae, which is amazing if you've never looked into that or you're not familiar with black soldier fly larvae. Really amazing project there. But yeah, the we have some mulberry. I ordered some white mulberry. Mulberry is a big thing in the neighboring town is actually called Mulberry. So that's like a big. They're pretty big around here. But yeah, they bear fruit. Like or what I got one last year. That has fruit on it. It's crazy. They grow fat. I think the leaves on some of them, maybe the white mulberry. I think were the edible leaves for the the forage. Yeah, that's all that's a great thing to do. When we got this property, there was a tree on it. So we started getting pine trees from the Forestry Service. You get them for like 5 cents a piece, and we planted hundreds of them. And then we've been planting a lot of guava from seed that we had. We're planting a lot of guava trees. My wife has, oh god, willow trees. We have elderberry trees. We have she has like ginkgo biloba trees. We've been planting a ton of moringa. It's actually something I didn't mention. Our one of our recent projects is we're planting a ton of moringa. I have some friends who talk about a hustle. I got some friends who started selling moringa, and in their first year, they did like $100,000 on like Amazon and
Wow.
Etsy and this and that, selling moringa products, just leaves, powder, this, that, the other. One of my buddies, he's been
Wow.
working at this for years, and he sort of went off the deep end, got really involved, and all like our mutual friends are like, dude, this guy blew a fuse. And I'm like, I'm not going to talk trash about him because people like that figure it out, and he's fucking figured it out. So
Nice.
anyhow, yeah, well, they're like importing like tons of moringa from overseas, and what they're trying to do is get people to grow it here. So they've planted up like an acre of moringa on my farm, and we're going to do more, and then they'll buy the lease from us.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm hoping for that to be a perpetual thing to help them, help me, and help their customers. But motherfucker calls me. He's like, "Yeah, I got like 50 kilos of powder coming in from Nicaragua this week, slinging a couple kilos." I'm like, "Say Moringa, say the word Moringa, for the love of God, stop fucking with me. I know what you're doing. Say Moringa."
my FBI agents are already getting a little.
I know.
Hairy.
They're getting tingly. Dude. Come on. But yeah, I think Moringa is like zone like 8 or 9 or below for something perennial outside. So check your zones. But I mean, shit, if anybody in those zones and can grow a lot of Moringa, I might be able to get it sold for you. I can't promise, but I got some dudes who are moving it. So
I'd be interested in that. Yeah.
Yeah, you can grow some Moringa and you want to take the time to figure out doing it and drying the leaves and stuff, we can get you, I don't know what the price is yet. We're working it out. But, I mean, they're paying dollars a pound from overseas. So they'd be willing to pay more than that.
Wow.
Here. So, at any rate, that's a fun one. That's something else we're working on. But trees, and that's something that's edible by people. That's something that's edible by animals. So Moringa is a really great fodder tree as well. But, yeah, I'm all about that. It's challenging. It's a lot of work to grow your own animal feed, but for a small scale, dude, though, like if you have a dozen chickens, I mean, you can get away with barely buying chicken feed. I mean, all your table scraps, can go to the chickens. If you have a garden, all your old broccoli leaves, they'll eat all that. Getting protein is the challenge, but like if you're up north where it snows half the year, you can throw them a rabbit. Like go shoot a rabbit, throw a rat. They'll eat the rabbit. I mean, they'll eat rats. Like they'll eat protein. If need be, you can find a source for it. It's of course when you're trying to scale. If you're trying to do a commercial operation, it gets to be, without being mechanized, especially, it'd be really tough. But I mean, there's systems out there, whatever you can make work for yourself. I mean, I don't want to sound restrictive on anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, fucking make it. That's what's great about this is we're all our own thing. We're all figuring it out. We're all fucking. It's just a big top-down industrial stuff. There's no innovation, right? I mean,
yeah.
Beyond being more dependent on Monsanto.
Yeah, I thought this was pretty cool idea of like kind of since we're both into agorism, is Bill Mollison did this thing where this is a story I heard where he wanted people to plant fruit trees. And so what he did was he put his fruit trees on the steps of the city hall, and then they were all gone. People took them all, and then there were like
nice.
fruit trees planted like all over the city, and that was like one of the things that I learned from going to Anarchapulco. I met this guy, Clive DeCarl, and
I know Clive.
You know Clive, man? I love Clive.
Yeah,
He's awesome.
I met him on the meetup I was talking about when I met Larkin and everything. Yeah, man, I've got some of his supplements.
Oh, yeah, he's great. He's great.
Yeah, super cool, man. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things he talked about was, okay, if everybody, instead of going to protest, if everybody grabbed, a fruit tree of some kind and just guerrilla garden planted them all around the cities and stuff like that, that would be a much more effective way of getting out of this system and everything. Mm-hmm. So I was like, he's got some pretty cool ideas, because that's what he told me. He's like, I talk about this health stuff because it was something that he got personally affected by and had to learn how to heal himself. And then he was like, but it kind of gives me a platform to talk about some of my more radical ideas and stuff. So
yeah, that's awesome. Guerrilla gardening's great. I mean, it's one of those things like effectiveness. I don't know, but it's a lot of fun. And I just think getting anybody. When you grow your first plant and you get something off of it and you eat it that first time, I don't know, man, it does something to you. We've just been so disconnected from our food, dude. It's just at the grocery store, it's where it comes from. But when your buddy tells you he grew a jalapeno pepper and ate it, you're like, oh man, that's crazy, that's so awesome, And then, of course, talking about normies here, but like that shouldn't be the case. That's such a crazy thing, for a 30-year-old dude to grow a pepper.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, dude, I ate it. It was amazing. It's like, yeah, dude, like that's what people have been doing, Like we gut our own chickens. Like you should try that. It's amazingly satisfying. But you just see it, and it just hits you in the face is how disconnected people are from their food. It's scary, man. If shit gets bad, it's It's gonna be weird.
Well, I don't know. I think everything that's going on is kind of good in a way because as a society, we've all kind of gotten so comfortable, and
Hmm.
I think our morality in our care has gone out the window. A lot of people are apathetic about everything, and I
Yeah.
think maybe we need a real come to Jesus moment. You know what I'm saying?
It's that hangover, you know what I mean? It's that necessary, it's if you want to talk like economics and everything with inflation stuff, like yeah, whatever has to happen to fix like the economy, to fix inflation, whatever the Fed is, the Fed is gonna raise interest rates and stop printing, like it's going to be painful, but it has to. I mean, it's that's the, like you said, the come to Jesus moment. I mean, the bender's over, dude. It's going to be painful, but that's how you grow, is through pain, though. I mean, that's sacrifice. And it's so, let alone fixing these past problems, just anything you do, I mean, it's going to be, you gotta you got to really put something into it. And like I said, these people that aren't used to doing that. I mean, even if you're just, I mean, even people who work hard, they go and they have a job and they work, but they're not working for themselves. They're not making things themselves that they use. There's you lose this passion, you lose this self sufficiency. Where okay, you're really good at programming whatever software, and I'm not knocking programmers or coders by any means, but like there could be a time where that isn't that important, and there's some other skills that really would have helped to have known, even just basic mechanic skills, or just how to
Yeah.
fix something in your home, or whatever. I mean, and of course there's people that can do all of those things, but yeah, it's I get kind of excited, I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna be really popular, my business is gonna blow up, and this and that. But it's also really scary because it's like, man, if things get really bad, it's the zombie apocalypse. That's not zombies. That's, replace that with people who aren't prepared, and that's a zombie apocalypse. It's the same
Right.
thing, it's scary. And we talked earlier about like when people say, "Oh man, shit's the fan, I'm coming to your house,"
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
because you got, and it's like, no, the fuck you aren't, But it's,
Yeah.
I really do seriously think about this scenario. I'm like, I have a lot of friends, and what if they show up at my gate? Like, am I going to be able to say, "Get gone"? I think it's going to come down to, what are your skills, or what do you have to trade?
Right.
Like, if you got something to bring to the table, let's talk. You want to go out and scavenge me some sheet metal? Hey, I'll give you food. Like,
Right.
so it's something like, but it's a real scenario, man, and it's a lot of unknowns, and it's kind of scary. I'm like, man, what? Because do the hordes come? There's a lot of people in those cities, and all those cities I mentioned that surround me, right? Like, I'm out in the sticks, but I'm between a lot of cities. I mean, there's millions of people in these cities. If they run out of food, which the cities run out of food in a day, right? 2 days,
Uh huh.
they're going to go somewhere. And I
Yeah.
mean, I know, the shape of Florida. There's only one corridor. It's through me. So
Yeah.
it's, it's, I don't know, man. I mean, I've really had to come to terms with being comfortable with, like, dying with a gun in my hand. Like,
Yeah.
um,
Well, I
it's
mean,
it sucks.
I've tried to ease my own mind, I guess, by looking into things in the past, and I'm a pretty big fan of Stefan Verstappen, and
Sounds familiar.
he goes into a lot of stuff in the past of collapses of the past and how people made it through, and there's a bunch of different examples of people that were able to make it through. Like a lot of the like the monks were pretty self-sufficient. They were able to keep themselves self-sustained in their like monk communities, and that's how some of these monks started to. That's why they learned kung fu, is because they were mostly peaceful, but in times when times got hard, they had to be able to defend themselves instead of being
Interesting.
pacifists. Instead
Well,
of
I always wondered, because I'm like, aren't they supposed to be like, basically pacifists, but they do like martial arts? I'm okay. I always wondered that. That's interesting.
yeah, yeah. So that's one thing in history, and then I found like I guess when I was kind of waking up to the world was what was going on, probably around 2009 or so. I found a book by the guy, this guy that basically kind of a documentation of the economic collapse that happened in Argentina in 2001.
Okay.
And in a lot of the stuff he lays out in there, talked about, like, when you are thinking about an economic collapse, it's not like everything just ends and it's like everybody's freaking out and
So everything's on fire.
total zombie apocalypse. Like, everybody's still got to go to work. They still got to
Mm,
be able to pay their bills. They still got stuff that they got to get done. And so he talks about the life continues, but it just gets harder because
right.
you got to worry about your security. There was stories about people faking their tire being blown at the side of the road, and then somebody comes to help them. They jack you, they take your car, they take off with all your stuff and everything. And
Hmm.
so it's like life just gets harder, but it doesn't necessarily end. And one of the things that he talked about in there was the farmers that were, you know, relatively self-reliant and out in the country and stuff like that. They would normally have to, like, daily fire warning shots because he put this question out there is like, are you going to kill a teenager that's starving?
Right.
So the farmers just had to accept a certain amount of
Hmm.
losses and daily fire warning shots to try to keep people at bay. So
Yeah, well, that's a lot of great points. And one, yeah, I mean, you kill the teenager, then what? You have a bigger problem on your hands when their family comes back, right?
yeah,
So it's almost better take a couple apples and get the fuck out of here,
right.
um, just from a like economic standpoint. But yeah, I tend to be a white pill dude, So I definitely agree with what you're saying. Like the scenario I was laying out, it's definitely like a worst case kind of thing.
Yeah.
And again, going back to like Spearco, like one thing he's like, dude, like, oh, well, what about beyond the 1 month supply of stuff you have? He's like, well, if it gets bad enough where you're beyond your 1 or 3 month, like it's so bad that because my whole like even like a version of crypto originally. Well, what if the power grid goes down? I want my gold, and it's like if the power grid goes down, like
We got bigger
you kind of
fish to
got
fry.
yeah, it's like we're pretty fucked, if it's that bad, where it's like your gold or your cash sure ain't gonna do you no good, but your gold might not even do you much good. So
Right.
and I mean I'm again I try to be the accepting of things I can't change and live life as happy as I can and not worry about the nonsense that's going on in the rest of the world. Because what can I really do about it other than worry and be prepared, right? So,
Right.
you know, that's the best we can do. And I mean, for the most part, things have always worked out, right? One way or another for most people, short
Yeah.
of a nuclear war. I think everything. I'm a survivor.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's why I like to keep in this show is the white pills, because what we're doing
Mm-hmm.
is we are building an alternative economy, and the hope in the future we may not be able to see this, but there's that saying where men plant trees whose shade they may never grow or
Mm-hmm.
be able to sleep under, and that's, I think, what we're having to do in this time we're living in is we may not necessarily see the fruits of our efforts of building like Shane calls the second realm, but in the future, if we basically outbreed everyone else, I think that's
Yeah.
important. Is to have families. Like, I'd like to have
Yeah.
a family and, like, basically have a bunch of liberty-minded little soldiers, basically, so that we can outbreed everybody,
Well,
and
that
and
is the
pat
hope. Yeah.
and be able to kind of pass on these ideas into the future, so that you know pick up the banner and keep driving these voluntary relationships and living in a more peaceful society forward into the future.
I totally agree on like a couple fronts. Again, I try to be optimistic because you have to be. I mean, what's the point of living, otherwise? And
Yeah.
I mean, it's the only way to move. And I try to be optimistic about like the kids. And I hate to sound like every tyrant I've ever hated, but like you got to get at them kids, And I'm we have our numbers, but I love to see all my Liberty friends having Liberty kids.
Yeah.
right? Because there's going to be more of them.
Mm-hmm.
Our numbers are going to grow. Now, are we outpacing the non-liberty people? I don't know. I'm not a mathematician. Somebody else is going to have to do that math. But I like the fact that we should hopefully be at least growing. Now that things like homeschooling are becoming more commonplace and easier to do with technology and internet, et cetera, and more effective. Just I have to feel like I was I was more optimistic of this when COVID first started than now, to be honest. But I was like, this is going to wake so many people up, all this bullshit. And of course it has, but not like I'd wanted it to, man. Not like I wanted it to. And now with the, you see everyone swallowing the Ukraine thing too. I was like, fuck, man. I was hoping we'd be better than this by now. But whatever,
Yeah.
man. People like us, man, who do stuff and grind, and we make it work. And this is why I like about agorism, because, and I'll go ahead and say, and I get a little bit of guff from this from other agorists, but I don't 100% buy into the agorism is the thing that's going to bring about the state.
Yeah.
If it is, I personally think it's up from the pitchfork. But agorism is something that I can sleep at night. With being this prong,
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with this. No matter what happens, no matter how bad things get, it's people who make products and services that keep the world running. Even when in prison, for crying out loud, there's a huge market. There's a huge black market. That's what keeps people in the comforts that they enjoy. That's what keeps people fed when governments are restricting supplies. That's what keeps people employed, when
Yeah.
governments are restricting that. One way or another, it's agorists who sort of make the world grind at its base level, So I love that. And that's why anybody can participate. People who don't know they're doing it are doing it. And then any dollar I can starve the state of, any one less bomb I can fund being dropped, I'm just thrilled with. So I just nestle in here perfectly.
Amen, brother. Yeah.
Yeah.
I read Yeonmi Park's book about her escape from North Korea, and in North Korea, that was basically one of the ways that families survived was by trading in the black market because they made
Mm-hmm.
trade illegal at one
Mm-hmm.
point. And if you did get caught, and this is what happened to her father, he ended up having to go to like a concentration camp essentially. But yeah, it was like one of the ways people could actually have food on their table was by trading in the black markets. And it's
Yeah.
like, just like you said, it's one of the things that keeps things going.
Yeah, yeah, keep grinding, man. They can
Hmm.
they can make all the fucking laws and rules they want. No matter, I mean, it's one of the things that brought me one of my first like red pills or whatever was when I was in high school and I started smoking pot. And I was like, well, this is bullshit. Like prohibition's bullshit. And I just even like I'm not a fan of heroin. Like I've seen a lot of pain loved ones caused by heroin, but it being illegal doesn't make it better. It doesn't make the situation better.
Right.
It just doesn't. So I don't. It's not in my moral. Like I couldn't be a heroin dealer, but like I don't. Like I don't necessarily have a moral problem with somebody else doing it. Again, it's going to exist. I just prefer that if it's going to be done, it's done in a safe and more healthy manner. Let's have shit that doesn't have fentanyl in it. Let's have secure
Yeah, yeah.
locations where people can go buy it.
Let
Yeah, it's
people
not ideal, but what the fuck you want, man?
Yeah, let people be educated on its effects and
Mm-hmm.
how it's going to affect your body and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, a lot of the things with drug use is because people have some kind of hole in themselves where they're
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, I think that that's a big problem is like somebody's dealing with a trauma from their past that they just is in there that they can't deal with or they haven't been able to deal with, so they're finding some way to escape. And that's probably one of the biggest reasons is because of the not having a good family. Is
Mm-hmm.
when you go down to it, a lot of these people is like they were traumatized in some way as a child, and they don't have a stable family. And
Oh yeah.
so, I mean, that does a lot to a human being.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough, man. And I've seen, and people I'm very close with, a lot of problems with addiction. And actually, when I was younger, I was really interested in addiction medicine, and I kind of wanted to get into psychology. And sort of pursue that path as like a career and got a little bit older and sort of saw a little more firsthand. I was like, no way, I couldn't. That's just too depressing of a line of work, man. But God bless the people who can, you know. But like, and it sucks because of course, you know, the state is like, you know, I hate to just blame the state on everything, but like it's the fucking case, dude. Like, I mean, they make these problems worse with prohibition, and then the solutions, like if you do try to seek treatment or anything, it's a nightmare, and they're not good solutions. It's just really unfortunate, man. It is, but like you said, I mean, I think if we had a better society, then those problems wouldn't be as prevalent. I mean, what is it like in like Netherlands? I mean, this was the big thing, like when pot was legal in the Netherlands, and no teenagers in the Netherlands smoke pot. You know, like way more teenagers in the U.S. smoke pot. You
Yeah.
know, where it's illegal and this and that, and it's like, well, why is that? Is it because it's illegal? I don't know. Maybe they just, I mean, they got a pretty cool system. And I mean, I'm not a fan of the socialist European thing, but I knew people from Holland, and they had small communities. The dude I knew, he lived in a town where they had their own dialect in this town. You know, they didn't even speak the same Dutch that the people 2 miles away spoke. You know, it's just a different. Like I said, man, it's family, and it's something I've really been, you know, learning when I was a little bit younger. You know, and I'm a bit more like I don't know. I mean, I'm still relatively like libertine or whatever, right? But I think in the last few years, I've really been having a lot more respect for the more like. I used to be really like, you know, like atheists, like, yeah, religious people are stupid and blah blah blah. And now I like see a lot of value in religion. And I'm not necessarily religious, but I get it more, and I don't have that same sort of detriment, you know, to or whatever. Like I don't the organized religion, of course, you know, has a lot of grossness to it, but I don't see it as just a negative anymore. You know, I see it. I see a lot of positivity in it. And I see why people. I almost wish I believed it, man. Like it seems like a nice life, dude. Like I almost, man, go back and be like a nice, good Christian boy. I don't know, man. There's some appeal to that.
Yeah. I can see that. You know, it's nice to have like a kind of a community of folks that are like minded. That's one thing I did talk to Shane about in our last podcast. We kind of touched on that a little bit. Is that there's a big difference between what Jesus was actually teaching and then what they teach in the church. So it's like you can call it like churchianity or whatever. You know, it's like there's a difference between what Jesus actually taught and then Christian doctrine. You know,
Yeah.
and so those things aren't necessarily the same. And when you see all these preachers and stuff telling people that they have to wear masks or you can't, you know, you're not coming to church because you know, the government told us and all this kind of stuff that we can't do that, you know, that really doesn't win anybody to their side either. So, but yeah, like you, I was raised Catholic, and so you know I was pretty deep into that stuff. But like I'm not really practicing religious anymore, and I'm more.
I hear Catholicism will do that to you.
Yeah, fuck yeah, well, yeah, man, and so yeah, I really saw that just because you're never reading out of the Bible yourself. You're always somebody's telling you what to think about the passage or whatever. So it's like you never really are able to figure it out yourself. And then when I started to play around with some psychedelics and stuff, and then I'm like, oh, well, this might be what they're talking about here, you know?
Right? The burning bush, huh?
Yeah. So I mean, I had a pretty intense experience when I went to Anarchapulco in 2020. I participated in a 5-MeO DMT ceremony with a shaman.
Nice.
And
that's the way I want to do DMT, the right way with a shaman.
Oh well, yeah. I think that it is helpful because they're almost like a guide for you because like it could be scary, you know, and
it's a serious thing.
It's pretty scary. Yeah, it's pretty scary. It's like the best way I could describe it is like taking a rocket ship to be part of the universal consciousness.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of once you have that experience and you kind of lose your ego and you look into that we're all part of this like huge universal consciousness, and at least that's what I kind of took away from it. is that we're all, we're all connected in this thing, and like aspects of that consciousness having a physical experience,
Hmm.
which is you know where I'm at as far as like all the spirituality and all that kind of stuff goes.
Yeah, I just feel like whatever I don't think we're capable of comprehending whatever the fuck is really the deal. You know what I
Right.
mean?
No, no,
I
no.
don't try
Yeah.
too hard. But yeah, man, I hear you, dude. I definitely enjoy a good mushroom or two in my day, and
Yeah.
man, DMT is tempting, but I'm a little older now, man. I'm a little nervous. Like back in the day, I used to be able to drop a good amount of pretty much anything and be fine, but I'm like, DMT is supposed to be pretty intense. I almost wonder if I could handle it these days. That's why I'd love to do the shaman thing, where it's like it's not just some dude named Greg taking me through it. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you Greg?
Yeah, yeah, I'm Greg, yeah.
Is the first name that came to mind. I'm sorry, maybe that's why. But same thing, dude. No offense, but I want a shaman taking me through it, not you.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, but yeah, man. Just the right way. I read this book recently. It was called Intelligence in Nature. I got it for Christmas for my wife, and it was great. But this guy, like, he went down to like South America doing shaman stuff, and he took like microbiologists and shit with him to do these DMT trips, and it changed their view on the fucking world. These are hardcore scientists, and they're like, yeah, I went and I talked to the plant mothers, and now I kind of see biology differently. And like, I don't know, man. It seems pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a lot of
Definitely
stuff
does.
there. Like there was one book that I'd like to check out. I still haven't got it yet, but it's called The Immortality Key, and they talk about how there was this cult in Greece that they were probably experimenting with psychedelics, and one of the things that was part of this like initiation or cult or whatever that they were one of the sayings was like, when you die, before you die, you never die. And that kind of describes that experience that I had on on 5-MeO DMT. Is like is like having a death experience and realizing that it's not, that's not the end. Like
Right.
it's the end of your perception of what you are, but it's not the end, is what I took away from it. And it's very special to have this body that can interact with this physical space. Actually, it's like
Mm-hmm.
we're in this body that's like kind of a mech suit that can interact with this like reality. It's pretty cool.
Vehicle as the
Yeah.
I just watched the thing yesterday, the cult people who killed themselves because of the Hale-Bopp comet. Like, it's your vehicle, and we get out of it, we go to the higher plane,
Uh
and it's
huh.
I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with them. I just I
Yeah,
don't agree
yeah,
with
yeah.
them. It's like,
I'm not drinking the Kool
yeah,
Aid.
yeah. I just I'm kind of curious. Tell me more, but I don't want to. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's something, dude.
Yeah. So, we're coming up on the end of the show here. We got a little bit of time left. Let me ask you this one question before we go. I'm gonna have you plug all your links and everything, but let me ask
Excellent.
you one question before for this: to till or not to till?
Okay, that is a very good question. So I'm gonna say, um, short answer yes with an if, long answer no with a but. Um, so there are some instances where fucking till, man, it saves you a ton of time and effort, blah blah blah. But once you have like an established garden and you're working with like established soil that you've been working on for a while, when you till it, you really beat up that soil structure you've been working so hard on. Tilling, like, okay, so tilling is like shooting some nitrous in your, in your car or whatever, right? Like you get that boost, but you're at the expense of burning up a lot of fuel, right? So you'll get like a boost, like your growth will be enhanced, but you're burning up a lot of that organic matter you've been building up. So I don't necessarily recommend it when you have an established garden, but like out here, like if I have some new ground I haven't planted on, it's grass and it's sand, not beating anything up, but I'm saving myself a ton of effort by running a little tiller over it or something. Here's what I'd recommend to people. This is what I like to do in my garden. So if I have an area that it's weeds, I just let it. I'm letting it for fallow or whatever, rotating crops, blah blah blah, not letting anything grow there. So I want to plant something. What I'll do is I'll mow it, and then I'll take a black, ground cover, that sort of plasticky stuff, weed barrier stuff, and I'll lay that down, that real good thick woven stuff, and I just let that sit there for like a month or two, and it's black, it blocks the sun, it gets really hot, and it kills all the grass and stuff under it. Then I pull that up and I'll plant there, and then my plants will be fine. And mulch it real good. Usually that stuff's pretty dead. You're good to go. You didn't have to till it. Whatever was there died. The roots were able to decompose in the ground, add that carbon, and it solves the same problem of killing all those weeds in a nice quick isn't the right word. I'm sorry. Easy fashion with very little labor. It does take time, but if you have the space available to rotate, it's a great way to go. So I'll do, like, especially over the summer, we don't grow anything. It's real hot. Put a few sheets of that stuff down, and then I have a nice area to go in the fall.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying, like, if you wanted to get something going pretty quick, like go, tilling can be a good way to get yourself
Yeah,
kicked in
if
gear.
you're
But
breaking new ground,
yeah.
like if this is like you're starting a new garden, till it, man. Save yourself the trouble. What else? You can go pull all that grass by hand. You can, but I mean, till it, you'll be fine. But yeah, once you get a good soil built up, you've been adding compost, you've been adding mulch, you've grown for a few years, you're getting some earthworms in there. Yeah, try to avoid tilling it because you burn a lot of that up. You set yourself back. It's not really a sustainable farming thing in the long term. But dude, having a tiller on hand, it can be a lifesaver. You can get a lot of space prepared quickly, and sometimes it's just what you got to do.
Okay. Awesome. So yeah, we're coming up on the last 5 minutes of the show. Where can people find you, and how do they go and get your seeds and your products and all that stuff?
All right. So, if anybody that is in Central Florida wants any of my farm products, my chicken, shoot me a message on Twitter or whatever you're comfortable with. I just don't want to put the name of that business out there. Um, but if you're in Central Florida and you want stuff, hit me up. By all means, I'll get you food. Seeds, agoristakers.com. Check us out. Free shipping on orders over $20. If you order by 6 p.m. Eastern, I get them out the next business day for you, so it's nice and quick. Again, we sell for crypto, all that. Why don't we say promo code, I don't know, Meadow for 10% off, and then I'll go ahead and give Greg here a percentage as well, so you get to help support the podcast. And yeah, check us out. If there's anything you see on there you want and I don't have, just hit me up. I try and get variety. We're still kind of new, so I'm constantly adding stuff. I started with old standards that they work, they grow. They're easy to come by, but I'm starting to get some different stuff, some more exotic things. And what I'm trying to work on as well is getting some small farmers who want to grow a seed crop, and then so instead of just buying bulk, whatever, blue bush bean 274 is the old standard. Like if you, for instance, were growing a special tomato and we wanted to get the seeds out there, but I'm just really particular. I need to know that they're going to be pure and this and that, so I don't have them up there yet. I'm working on it though, guys, I promise. So check us out there. Let's see. Also, my wife does amazing stuff. She makes a ton of amazing tinctures. She has like 30 different tinctures. Her company is called TheWillowsGift. She currently has a shop on Etsy. It's called TheWillowsGift. She makes a tincture. She does herbal teas that she blends. We grow some of the stuff. She buys some of the herbs. They're organic when she buys them. Otherwise, we grow them and wildcraft them. She also is the most amazing artist I've ever seen, and she does custom pet portraits. If you have a photo of your dog or cat or whatever, she will do an amazing pencil sketch. She can do paint. She can do pastels. There's some information on there. I will be getting her a website soon, but contact me or contact her. She's Agorist. I'm Dagorist on Twitter, but we will get you hooked up. She also does paracord, dog leashes, etc. But she is amazing. She is the best art. I know you're supposed to say that or whatever, but she is the best fucking artist I've ever seen. It is incredible. You see some of her stuff.
Yeah, I saw some of her painting or some of her drawings of the pet portraits, and they're like,
Yeah.
damn good, man. Those are great.
Yeah, that one of my hound dog is amazing. Finally, my content stuff is going to be I do two things. I do some work with the Agorist Nexus. I co-host that show with Brandon, who is great, and he's the founder there at the Nexus, and he's put this thing on. We, to be honest, we've been a little slow lately. Brandon moved to Mexico, and internet's really sketchy there, so he's working on it. If Musk will ever get Starlink going, he'll be set. But check us out there. One of the things I really love about the Nexus, I love our content. Really great articles and everything. Shane actually writes for us sometimes. He's really great. He's done some work with us. Um, but they have a directory, and this is what originally drew me to the Nexus. They have a directory, so if you have a Liberty business or something, or you're an Agorist or whatever, go on there. You can set up an account. You can post on there. It's free, and you can be on the directory. And likewise, go on there and you can sort of do some shopping on there as well on some other Liberty-minded businesses. If you have any issue with if you're getting it set up and you run into any roadblocks or whatever, not that you would, but if you do, hit me up and I will fix it. We'll get you in there. So check us out there. We'll be coming out with some new episodes here soon, hopefully. And then I also do a show, morning show. It's called The Morning After with a few dudes. It live streams at 8:30 Eastern on YouTube. Go and like us. It's pretty new. It's kind of a shit show. We dick around, talk about current events, talk shit about each other, all that. So we've got a few people who stream with us or, comment and everything, which is actually a lot of fun when people watch a live podcast. I was so nervous my first streaming episode after only doing recordings, but it's not so bad when you get used to it.
Oh, I know that. I know it, man. I know it. Yeah. Started with a co-host and then went on my own solo, and you sweat it for a little bit there. So
yeah,
I understand. Well,
takes a bit to get comfy.
Yep. Well, that's about it for us for the show. So thank you so much, Dag, for coming on, man. You've been a
This was an
great
absolute
guest.
blast, man.
I had a lot of
thank you.
fun, man. And anytime you want to come back on, we'll bring you on. We'll talk about whatever. Maybe
Sweet.
we'll talk. Yeah. Maybe we'll talk about the van thing. Maybe some ideas about that on the.
Oh shit, yeah.
If
you ever need a guest, man, you just hit me up, man. I'm always down. This was a blast. And I will get that promo code in there. It will be good by like tomorrow. So if you guys want to use that for some deals on some seeds, man, check it out.
All right. Well, I'll have all the links in the description, and we'll get you this video as soon as I get it released, man. Should be in the next couple days. I'll have it up on my YouTube channel, the Tinker Tribe on YouTube, and get you all that stuff and have all your links in the show description. So thanks again, man.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
All right, Dag. You have a good night, man.
Thanks, dude. You too.
All right. Good to talk to you.
All right, peace.
All right.